Okay, would you rather have a BB unit or an R2 unit? An R2 unit, of course. Would you rather drink an entire jar of pickle juice or kiss Jabba the Hutt? Well, I'd probably drink the pickle juice, to be honest. Would you rather dump a glass of water on yourself or say something nice about Attack of the Clones and how they handled Anakin and Padme's relationship? Oh, okay. So I was recently thinking to myself, we need more positivity in this world, especially for the movies and things that we don't like. I think it's important to look at things from a critical lens, but I also think it's important to see things from the brighter side perspective. Because not everything is all doom and gloom and bad, as much as it seems like that in this world presently, but I just wanted to take a few moments to sort of appreciate every Star Wars movie. We celebrate a day of peace. Sorry, it's never going to come to that. But I wanted to take a moment to sort of point out the main Star Wars movies and say, hey, there are great things about all of them. We'll start with the Phantom Menace, of course. You know, the prequel trilogy is riddled with a lot of potential, and there are a lot of flaws in there too, but I do think that some of the stuff that gets overlooked in the prequel trilogy, especially Phantom Menace, is just how amazing the acting talent is. Like, you got Liam Neeson, you got Natalie Portman, you got Ewan McGregor, you have Sam Jackson, you have Ian McDiarmid, of course, returning as Palpatine. I just think that it's like an all-star cast, basically, and the script isn't always there, but I think that they do provide a lot of sympathy to these characters. Like, Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon, that is Qui-Gon. Like, that is the reason that I wanted so much more of his character. And the same goes for Darth Maul. I mean, Darth Maul doesn't say much at all, but the visual and the aesthetics of him, and I think that's one thing the prequels really nailed, was aesthetics. I mean, not just talking about the costume and the wardrobe, because I mean, I know we see Padme go through so many different sets of gowns and clothes and hairstyles, but they're also impressive and beautiful, whether she's, you know, Queen Padme Amidala or if she's, you know, regular Padme, Senator Padme. I think that there's a lot there, you know, and like besides that though, you know, you get Darth Maul, you get just the visual aesthetic of all these planets. Like for instance, you know, Tatooine, we get to revisit Tatooine and we get to see like the ugly slavery side of it. And I think that's something that we don't talk about a lot either, and how flawed the Jedi are. I know that a lot of people want the Jedi to be perfect and they want them to be just these like deities almost, but they're not, you know, they are very flawed. There's a reason they fell. And they pretty much got too big for their britches, basically. And we see the signs of that, especially in Phantom Menace, when, you know, they can free Anakin, but they can't free Shmi. And I just think it's interesting that they never go back to try to do that, the Jedi. I know it's revealed in Queen's Shadow that Padme tried to go back and free Shmi. And I think that's very important to her character, that happens. And that we know at least somebody was trying to do that. But the fact that the Jedi are kind of like, nah, Anakin, you gotta let that go. That's the right thing to do in our religion, not try to free this boy's mother so he doesn't at least try to harp over that. It's like a great challenge for them. But I think making the Jedi non-sympathetic makes sense in a way. You know, like, you're mad that you dislike the Jedi in a lot of situations and how harshly they judge Anakin in the Phantom Menace, but it also makes a lot of sense why they fall in the grand scheme of things. And last but not least, the Phantom Menace has the greatest lightsaber fight in terms of choreography. Duel of the Fates is literally the best fight ever, and it cannot be denied as such. In terms, they were moving so fast, like physically, Ewan McGregor, Ray Park, and Liam Neeson were moving so fast that they actually had to slow them down from the beginning to the middle to the end. You know, when it's all three of them, to when it's just Qui-Gon and Maul, to the end when, you know, you get to see Obi-Wan's anguish and how he, as just a Padawan, albeit like on his way to becoming a Jedi, takes Maul down. And now moving on to Attack of the Clones. I think Attack of the Clones is probably the hardest Star Wars movie for me to look at and be like, you have good things about you, I promise. Geonosis stands out. I think it stands out for everybody. I think that whole sequence, while extremely CGI'd, especially in the droid factory, there's a lot of fun there, you know? I think once you get to that last, 45 minutes of the movie, it's non-stop. And that's the good parts, you know? When you have Obi-Wan who's chained up, and Anakin's like, we came to rescue you. And Obi-Wan's like, good job. It's just that's the snark I'm here to see. And it's, I think, one of the reasons that separating Obi-Wan and Anakin is kind of a mistake, because they actually do have a good banter when you put them together and you slide the dialogue around the right way. And then last but not least, the wedding scene in the end is absolutely stunning. Whenever they filmed on location at places, I just think it's gorgeous when you showcase different places from around the world. But Padme's dress, coupled with the beautiful sunset and the music and R2-D2 and C-3PO being the witnesses, that's a perfect end. That's a perfect ending to a very, very flawed movie. Revenge of the Sith is a movie that, while riddled with flaws like its two predecessors, I really think that this movie hits it hard and it doesn't pull any punches. In particular with the Anakin and Obi-Wan stuff, that whole scene when, even though their lightsaber fight is really long, and I said Duel of the Fates is the best lightsaber fight in terms of choreography, I think as far as emotional charge, it's this one. And I don't know if many people could really fight that, because just the whole different phases. And if you look at it, Obi-Wan's really not attacking. He has no desire to kill Anakin. He is basically fighting for as long as he can to maintain this fight, and I think both of them sort of have this idea that Obi-Wan's not going to walk away from it alive. I think Obi-Wan is totally prepared to die not for Anakin, but he's not prepared to kill him. He cannot strike him down. They both know this, and they both have to fight accordingly, basically. It's part of Obi-Wan's fighting style with Form 3, Suretsu. He does sort of let the other person exhaust themselves, and that's kind of what happens. Anakin's own hubris takes over him. But the thing is with Anakin is you get to truly see the tragedy behind him in this movie and how he just wants to save everything he loves. And in doing that, he becomes the very thing he sought to destroy. And the back and forth between him and Palpatine, I think, is one of the most captivating things in the whole series. But the Palpatine and Anakin relationship and seeing that build pre-Vader is something really, really outstanding. Solo, a Star Wars story. Okay, so Solo is one that I have not seen in quite a long time. I think that Lando Calrissian is absolutely perfect. Donald Glover plays this role to perfection. He plays a young Billy Dee so well that I would watch a Lando movie or a TV show or short or whatever. I think that, he's sympathetic, but he's funny, and his relationship with his droid is something that none of us should be shocked about. He plays him like a pansexual space gambler, and that's exactly what he is. The relationship between Qi'ra and Han is actually something I also really enjoyed too. I mean, they didn't play it to the end game, thank goodness. They did not do an I love you. It didn't feel like it negated his relationship with Leia, which I thought was something really important. Upon seeing it, I said it in my review, it still holds up. I think that it's something that sets up why Han Solo is the way he is. And I think it's one of the few things in the movie that was absolutely necessary to be there. Not only because it's, Emilia Clarke, who's awesome, but because it is why Han Solo is sort of scruffy and why Leia suits him so well. Leia is what Qi'ra isn't. She taps into the goodness in Han, and Qi'ra just sort of acknowledges the goodness in Han, but she can't be that for him, and they can't be equals to each other. I love how Han met Chewie. I think that is just absolutely hilarious, and it builds on their relationship so well, and how they're just, Han's slowly trying to navigate Shri-Wook and that language, and the both of them are just, they're stuck in a situation, and then Han is sort of okay, yeah, you can be my team, and the way the two of them develop that bond is just really, really, really sweet, and it's why we see them how they are later. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars movies of all time. My favorite thing about it is that it links together the prequel and original trilogy to perfection. And it also answers one of the biggest questions ever, is why was there a fail-safe button in the Death Star? And that's because it was intentional by Galen Erso so that the rebellion could find it, albeit it's a very, very hard loophole to get. You pretty much needed to have the Force to get it, but it's something really special. The bond between all of these characters is something phenomenal. I think Rogue One has some of the best established relationships, and it's only like a one-off, you know? That's the crazy part. Like, and how, like, they develop over the course of the movie, and Jin learns to stop looking down and to start looking up in terms of what flag is raising in the air. And it really does say a lot about participation, basically, and not being able to sit down and ignore what's happening outside your door. And I think that's a very relevant topic, for one thing. I think the visuals in Rogue One are absolutely impressive. It brings the war to a very small scale level. It takes it away from just kind of being like, all right, this is a background thing while the main characters are doing this. No, these are the soldiers of the war, essentially, and it shows that true sacrifice. And that scene with the Death Star, when you're pretty much watching it happen from the ground view, that is like, whoa, A New Hope. A New Hope, like the rest of the original trilogy, there's not much I can say negatively about that. My favorite thing about A New Hope is the characters and the levity of it. Coming off of Rogue One, which ended in a very, you know, kind of sad way because we lose all of our main characters, we're immediately shoved into the original trilogy with Leia, Han, and Luke, and just how the three of them with Chewie and 3PO and R2 and Old Man Ben, how they all interact with each other and how they each have their part to play. Han is the smuggler who does not want to be there at all. Leia is so gung-ho, but she is the most experienced. She has her mission, and that is that. She is no nonsense. Luke is all nonsense. He's just trying not to be. He's trying to fit in. He wants to be the hero really bad, just doesn't know how to be. And I think that how the three of them, their dialogue, just the way that they jive off each other, it's their chemistry, I think, that brings everything alive in this movie, and it makes the fight feel so personal. Empire Strikes Back. There's absolutely nothing to not love about this except the cave scene. And, you know, you get the romance. Han and Leia's romance is something that I think a lot of people dream to write in terms of reception, as well as just how, like, throwing that in the midst of action is just so, it just ups the ante so much. The Luke and Vader reveal is ridiculous, and it's changed so much, and I can't emphasize that enough. I love Hoth. I love the added scenery of Dagobah as well, and all of the creatures that they got to toss into this one too. I love that Empire Strikes Back doesn't end on a happy ending. And I know I just said A New Hope was like really happy, and that's why I love it and everything, but Empire is the dark movie that needed to be. It needed to exist, because I think that Empire Strikes Back really, the reason it's the best Star Wars movie ever is it took everything A New Hope did and made it better, but it also added this ultimate intrigue with why you had to come back. Han Solo was taken. He's like the favorite character of everybody, and you needed him back, and you want to see how they try to do that. We just found out Darth Vader was Luke's father, and you want to learn what was going on with that either. It's going to take you an entire prequel trilogy to do that, but it's Star Wars at its best because it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it manages to make things more serious, if that makes any sense. Return of the Jedi. My favorite thing about Return of the Jedi is that it is the happy ending. And I've said this on numerous occasions, but like when I think of the ending in Star Wars, I still think of Return of the Jedi. I still think of the Ewoks doing their little keg stand in the end. I still think of the really cute Han and Leia hug in the end. I still think of Luke running and joining his friends and then staring off and disassociating while staring at three ghosts. I think that Return of the Jedi wraps everything, the struggle between the everything the prequel trilogy characters lost, and everything they sacrificed, and all the trauma the whole galaxy went through, and being able to be like, this is what you all fought for. And the original trilogy, how they were the children that fought their parents' war, basically for them, because that's what happens, unfortunately. Seeing that transpire and seeing that happy ending is something that might not always happen like that in real life, but it's something we kind of want from fantasy. It doesn't all have to be gritty and sad and horrific. It can be a happy ending with a party at the end and feel just as good. The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens is my second favorite Star Wars movie. Scene when the lightsaber wiggles in the snow, it builds up so much tension. And of course the John Williams score comes back in again and just scoops it on up. I think The Force Awakens set so many things right for the sequel trilogy. Bringing back the original characters and having them interact with the new ones. And even though it is very reminiscent of A New Hope, I really think that it passes the torch very well from the old to the new. You know, Han Solo dies, but he wanted to die so bad. Harrison Ford wanted to die so bad in Star Wars, and he finally got his wish. I think that whole scene is extremely emotional, and it sets up a very complex villain and also like a very compelling hero with a mysterious background. He arose because Finn had this amazing defected stormtrooper storyline that we just hadn't seen before, and Phasma had a lot of appeal. I just think that there were like the prequel trilogy, there's so much potential here, and it really was a solid start. The Last Jedi. So again, sticking only to the things I really like about The Last Jedi, I think it has some of the most beautiful aesthetics in all of Star Wars. I think it is the best acted movie in all of Star Wars. Whether I liked all the words they were saying or not, I do think that this movie has so many big punchy scenes. You know, Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley, while I don't necessarily think they have romantic chemistry on screen, I think the two of them are just so phenomenal in their facial expressions, and well, more Daisy Ridley with facial expressions, but Adam Driver does carry a lot of emotional strength and sympathy that you do feel a pull to him in a sense. Not like he has this tortured, conflicted nature about him that you just can't help but wonder about what happened there. And, you know, seeing this is some of Mark Hamill's best acting as well, and Carrie Fisher. I think that the two of them add so much to the movie. I think Poe has a really solid story arc in The Last Jedi. He goes from being this, like, headstrong, like, he's trigger happy to an extent, and in the end, he really learns what it means to be a true hero, and I think that he's the one with the most concise storyline. I mentioned the visuals. I think that some of the tricks they play are fantastic. The scene with Force Skyping Luke, the fact that, like, the details and how his foot moves across the sand or the salt and you can't see the red, and that's supposed to be like a clue to you that it's a projection. Phenomenal. Like, that's so cool. That is a very cool thing. I like the twist, in theory, about the Red Room scene with Kylo and Rey where Snoke takes the lightsaber. Awesome. And the ending with the implication that Leia is going to show Rey everything they need. Yeah. The Rise of Skywalker. I think The Rise of Skywalker tries to fix everything that The Last Jedi sort of threw to the wayside a little bit. The Rise of Skywalker gave me Jedi Leia, and that's pretty much all you need to know in terms of my excitement. I also like the way that it took Rey to being in a position of kind of being like this protector of the Order in the end. At least that's what we're supposed to be led to believe by her yellow lightsaber, if we're keeping to the old-fashioned meanings. I think that Rey, going through all of what she goes through, I think showing her prevail with light is a really, really good thing. I really liked how they handled Carrie Fisher in this one. I thought that, you know, they had a difficult task that they did her justice. I thought that all the Rey and Kylo stuff was handled very tastefully. I know a lot of people are not big fans of the ending. I think that going back to the original idea of being like, okay, this is the sacrifice you have to make to be a good person, I kind of, you know, agree with people making amends for their wrongs. The Han Solo scene made me cry. It makes me cry every time I watch it. That is just some really powerful parallels I think hit so strong. I think that the action, the stunts, the visuals, the aesthetics, they keep up on par with this one. The ending is very emotionally charged and powerful. It's not my Return of the Jedi, but the hug between the three of them, I like the concept of Rey Skywalker. I've mentioned it before. I think that it fits her narrative of choosing her family and choosing who she aligns with and maintaining that legacy, because not only is she keeping the legacy of the Jedi, she's keeping the legacy of the Skywalkers intact, which are basically one and the same now. Alright guys, so that is my positive take on every single Star Wars movie, even some that I have negativities held for. What do you guys think? What are your reviews? Let me know in the comments below. May the Force be with you guys. Have a great day.